Here's the traffic speed of 553 heading 092, and then we'll turn to establish ILS 27 right.
Cargo 1044 and T4 traffic occupying the eastern part of Sierra.
Heavy traffic speed of 553, establish ILS 27 left number 1.
No takeoff, spoiler, no takeoff, flash, no takeoff, brake.
Peaceful traffic, cargo looks 1044, lining up via Sierra 2D, on runway 27 left.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I would love to welcome you aboard our flight. When you find your seat, please be sure to place your larger carry-on items in the overhead bins and smaller items underneath the seat in front of you. Unless you're in the front row, please place all of your items in the overhead bin. If you have any trouble finding a location for your carry-on items, please let a flight
Peaceful
attendant
traffic,
know.
cargo looks 1044, taking off on 27 left.
If the overhead bin is full after you put your carry-on inside of it, please close the bin as a courtesy to other passengers. Once all your items are put away, please clear the aisle and sit down.
Peaceful traffic, business class, gate 563.
If you are seated in an emergency exit row, please leave the exit seating responsibilities in the safety card in the seat back in front of you. Please make sure you are willing and able to perform the actions required. If you are not able or prefer not to perform these actions, please let a flight attendant know so you can be reseated. Now's the time to get out any last-minute text messages if you need to, but we ask that once we depart from the gate, you put away any laptops or tablets. Thank you, and welcome aboard.
Good evening, ma'am. How are you? I'm doing good.
I'm right next to her. Thank you. I'm right next to her. Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening, ma'am. How are you? I'm doing good. are you? Good evening, ma'am. How are you? I'm doing good.
We're ready to go when you are. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard Flight 03 with service to
Heathrow ground, taxiing to runway 27 left via Delta and Bravo, Speedbird ground. Heathrow ground.
We ask that you make sure that all devices are in airplane mode and your larger devices are now shut down and stowed. If you have not already,
Thank you, that.
fasten your seatbelt and verify it is low and tight across the back. Your tray tables and seat backs must be in the full upright and locked position for departure. Cabin crew, secure doors for departure. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your complete attention to the flight attendants as they demonstrate the safety features of our aircraft. You will notice a light illuminated above your seat. When this light is illuminated, please fasten your seatbelts low and tight across your lap. To fasten, insert the metal fittings into one another and tighten by pulling on the loose end of the strap.
Safer traffic to 553 vacate to 7 right,
There are several emergency exits on this aircraft. Please take a few moments now to locate your nearest exit. In some cases, your nearest exit may be behind you. If we need to evacuate the aircraft, floor-level lighting will guide you towards the exit. In the event of a decompression, an oxygen mask will drop in front of you. To start the flow of oxygen, pull the mask towards you. Place it firmly over your nose and mouth, secure the elastic band behind your head, tighten the straps if necessary, and breathe normally. Although the bag does not inflate, oxygen is flowing to the mask. If you are traveling with a child or someone who requires assistance, secure your mask on first and then assist others. Keep your mask on until a member of the crew advises you it is safe to remove it. In the unlikely event of a water landing, a life vest is located in a pouch under your seat or between the armrests. When instructed to do so, open the plastic pouch and remove the vest. Slip it over your head. Wrap the straps around your waist and buckle at the front. Pull the strap to tighten. To inflate the vest, pull firmly on the red cord only when exiting the aircraft. If your life vest does not inflate automatically, blow into the mouthpieces for manual inflation.
Norfolk traffic, Golf Oscar runway Lima Alpha, TBM 9, starting taxi to runway 25, positioning flight to Elstree.
And hug the cushion to your chest. Once again, all devices must be in airplane mode and your larger devices must be turned off and stowed at this time. Please securely stow your personal items. Make sure your seatbelts are fastened and seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright position.
City traffic, flyer 3, Yankee Golf, taxi runway 27, backtrack, and take off.
In the lavatories is prohibited by law. All of this information can be found in the safety card located in the seat back in front of you. Please read it and let a cabin member know if you have any questions. Thank you for flying with us again, and we hope you enjoy your flight. We're ready for departure.
City traffic, flyer 3 Yankee Golf, takeoff 27, lid 5 Tango.
Northbound traffic, CDM line departing runway 25 and turning north south.
Takeoff okay.
Heathrow traffic lining up and taking off runway 27 left Heathrow traffic.
What the hell is going on with this aeroplane? Right, let's try again after a little bit of a grass stint. Fuel check. The auto throttle's dangerous with this thing.
Takeoff okay.
Heathrow traffic runway 27 left vacated.
V1. Rotate.
street traffic, TBM 9, right downwind, runway 27.
Gatwick traffic, Giant 1196, localizer.
Industrial traffic, TBM 9 going round.
Nice and bobby. I don't know what's going on here though. This airplane's not doing VNAV as it should now. Trying to figure out why. Yeah, the auto throttle's not great. Okay, right, I figured out what's going on. Because I did a rejected takeoff, it needs the performance putting in again, I think. I think it wiped it.
Gatwick traffic, Giant Bomber 96 fully established, ILS 26 left.
Transition altitude.
There we go, VNAV's back. It's the first rejected takeoff I've ever done in that, so it kind of makes sense that it wasn't there. profile happily. It doesn't climb like a rocket anymore. It's fairly good in its pitch up transition. I don't know. I got a takeoff config warning, and I think it was just the RTO was off rather than an RTO, but it was quite early that I aborted it. So I think that triggers the flight to start or something in the computer, and then it gets rid of the well, it got rid of all the performance information, which isn't helpful. I'm testing a fix. This thing's, yeah, the throttle's dodgy, we all know that, but it's got an issue in its descent. It's got an issue in descent that just won't slow down, even as per the profile that they've set by default, which is annoying. I think, looking at the that I noticed in the performance data, it's just the they've shallowed the descent angle from 3 degrees to 2.7 degrees, which I still think that's not going to fix it, 'cause that's not going to fix the throttle. All that's doing is shallowing the descent. Right, I should now be able to switch to FMS speed. There we go. Because the VNAV's in properly now. Right, okay. That was a hassle and a half of a departure, that. I should have rechecked FMC data. I'll know that next time. Recheck the FMC if you do a rejected takeoff. It doesn't keep performance information, which is what you need to climb. It's not a very long flight, this. Yeah, it's nice. The only niggles that get me about it is all to do with the auto thrust. It just does not like turbulence at all. It can't deal with it. It overshoots and undershoots and overshoots and undershoots. It's got no smooth sort of transition. The VNAV and LNAV stuff, that's my fault. That's on this flight. I've never done a rejected takeoff, so I didn't even know I had to check the FMC to make sure the performance data was still in there. So that was my fault. But the auto throttle not being able to keep nice in turbulence, we'll see on the descent. It's not such an issue on departure because you're speeding up. It's on descent when you need to slow down. It just doesn't seem to be able to slow down, even as per the default profile. So I've left the I'll show you. I've left the performance at the defaults. This is all default. So climb is 270/.74, cruise is long range cruise, and descent is 290 with a transition to at 0.78. 0.78 transition at 290, and then 2.7 degrees. And the descent I'm doing in is it's not a staggered descent at all. It's a descent straight down to 3,000 feet to join the ILS. So it's only the aircraft, no constraints that are going to be messing with it. I did this exact flight before, and this is the one that this is the flight I used as an example to tell them there was something wrong. But I'm testing a new gauge. I think it's a gauge file. So they've done something, but I hope they haven't just changed the descent profile from 3 degrees to 2.7 degrees, because that's not going to work. It's the auto throttle that's the problem. I don't really know how to describe the problem exactly, other than it doesn't slow down, and it can't. It maintains the 290, but what I feel like it doesn't pull the power back enough. It doesn't pull the power to idle easily enough. It's always wanting to put a little bit of power on. Yeah, we'll see on descent. I'll know if they've fixed it. It's fairly obvious what happens. it manages, it does the descent, sort of half of the descent, it stays on profile. It's really nice. It can, because it can idle the throttle enough and use descent to maintain the 290. But it's as you get closer and closer to that slowdown point, it just doesn't seem to want to slow down enough. So I've got the initial fix at 2. See, look, why is it slowing to 250? Is that long range cruise speed? That might just be the long range cruise speed at this altitude, to be honest. Yeah, it probably is long range cruise speed at this altitude. If we look at the performance, cruise, yeah, long range cruise is 0.59 at this altitude, so that's fine. That's not an issue. That's just the aircraft doing what it's supposed to do. What was I saying? Yeah, it's when it gets closer to that initial slowdown. So I've got 210 at Rob. Let's have a look. It's an R. Begins with R. So I'm not exactly following the star completely. I'm just going direct from Alpha Romeo Echo to Rospo, which is the initial approach fix. I've set 210 slow down there, and then there's a waypoint that I can be above 3,000 still. It's absolutely fine. I've set 180 to that to start a slowdown, and then Eshin is where at 3,000 I'll intercept the glide slope. So that's obviously the default of 150, but I'll put my speeds in a minute when I work out what my landing weight's going to be. But it's getting down to this speed that's the problem, and you can't just whack flaps out, because the flaps 1 is 230 knots, flaps 2 is 215, flaps 3 is 200, flaps 4 is 180, so is flaps 5, and then flaps 4 is 165. We'll do a flaps 5 landing, but what I find is, because the auto throttle's trying to counteract everything too much, you put a bit of flap out, all it does is counteract the drag with power and stays over speed, which doesn't help. But let's see on this. This is the first time I've flown this new file, so let's see. I'm just going to turn my seatbelts off so the passengers can have a piss if required. It's not so bad. Above 10,000 feet it behaves perfectly. It's below 10,000 feet. I mean, you can't really judge a London City departure. The London City departures are low, slow, and turns very early. So it's quite a rushed departure anyway. So that might have been my performance that's affecting how the jet's able to behave. But the descent thing, I mean, that's the aircraft. It does it when I do the other flights for Chewy. For Jaff.
In a few moments, our lovely flight attendants will be starting our in-flight service. We'll be serving complimentary drinks and snacks. Premium drinks are available for a
Does she not know I was talking? That's so rude to talk over me. I'll have to have a word when we land. But it's a really nice aircraft. I think they overpriced it because, well, they've reused the avionics from version 2. It's so obvious they've reused them. The flight model, yeah, is, but they didn't make that. Phil there didn't make that. What was it? Who made that? It's another. I'll have to look it up, but it's another. They basically got someone in to make the model. Yes, the cockpit model they've improved an awful amount because they've got 3D switches and it does look okay. But the avionics behind it all, so the FMS and the nav system and all that, I feel like it's behaving exactly how version 2 behaved, which is a little bit annoying for a product that costs it. Don't like the amount of cloud that's below me right now. So you see the throttle's nice and smooth right now. Wait until we get into turbulence and you'll see it bloody forward and backward super fast. And that's what it was doing, unless this file has smoothed that out. But I don't know how a gauge file is going to smooth. Oh. Traffic, where is he? Plus 1.3. Off my left. Left and behind somewhere, let's have a look. Nope, can't see him, no contrails were too low. I mean, you can see the external model's beautiful. people are whinging about little things that they're noticing as well, like the fact the fan blades spinning is a texture, so you can't look through it. It's just a spinning texture by the looks of it. The lights are really nice. The PBR's really nice. The shine's nice off it. So externally, I've got no problems with the model. I don't really spend my time looking at the aircraft from outside much, so I'm not that bothered. Because we're not that far above the cloud, I think we are getting a little bit of turbulence, and you can see the throttle. You can hear it hunting a little bit. Oh, sorry, yawns. Stevie, I'll jump on DCS after this flight. It's not a long flight. Where's my top of descent? Top of descent is there just before. What is that? Badr. What time am I getting to Badr? Let's have a look. There you go. 11:08 Zulu. So top of descent's probably about half an hour away then. Right. I mean, it's even got a nice little weather radar that works. I mean, when it refreshes, hang on. Wait for it to scan. There you go, look, nice little weather radar. Actually shows weather on it and turbulence. For me, the only thing that needs to be improved for me to be happy would be the auto throttle, so that it controls it correctly in turbulence. It shouldn't be hunting so much in turbulence. If anything, it should stay slightly higher, but it should be smooth movement, not rushed, flicking full and off, because that's never going to work. Because what I'm guessing it's reacting to the instant changes in airspeed detected as turbulence hits the jet and wind shear and stuff like that hits the jet. But the service pack one, they've fixed the flight level change. Basically, if you've got an altitude restriction like on the departure I've just done at 3,000, and then all of a sudden there's no altitude restriction after it, what it did do was it stayed. Basically, I think what it was doing, it was keeping its nose level too long while it increased the speed, and then once it hit that speed it was supposed to hit, then it'd start pitching up. But by the time it's at its climb angle, it's got 20 knots extra, and now it wants to burn that off, so it pitches up a little bit too far and ends up climbing at like 5,000-6,000 feet per minute, which it doesn't do now, thankfully. They've smoothed that transition out. I think what they've done is made it pitch up preemptively as it's reaching the speed it's supposed to be at in the climb. So they fixed that. What else did they fix? They fixed the lights being a bit crappy. The taxi lights and landing lights, I think, were pointing too far at the ground, so they weren't projecting far enough in front, so they were pretty useless. And what else did they fix? They fixed something that was important to me. I'm trying to remember now. Oh yeah, what was important to me, because I fly for JAF, and which is TUI. They fly from, it's basically TUI Belgium. There's flights that go from OJAI, I think that's Oman, I don't know. But it's like a 5-hour flight in one of these, and the problem was they hadn't actually put the right amount of fuel ability in these jets. They were short by like 2,000 kilos. But I gave them the figures, and I'm guessing they've used those because they're the same figures I gave them to correct the tank size, and now it carries the right amount of fuel. that'd be an interesting departure to do again. Because I was at max takeoff weight out of OGA AI. It's warm for a start, but the last time I did it, it was a bit bumpy, and because they hadn't fixed the flight level change issue, it at that weight it max powered and climbed stupid high rate. Shouldn't be able to achieve the rate that it climbed at then at max takeoff weight. I mean, now I'm quite light. I took off then 45,000 kilos. Max takeoff weight's 51.8, I think. So, carrying slightly more fuel than I actually need for this flight. I'm going to land with about 2.3 according to the FMC. I'm going to round that. Actually, yeah, we'll go off 2.3, which would make our landing weight 42.5. We'll get our little program up, which you guys can't see, but it's called ERJ Speed Calculator Reloaded. It's actually for X-Plane, but all the speeds that are modelled are just real speeds. So, and people complain about the approach in this thing, flaps 5 approach being too nose high. I just don't think they understand how nose high the aircraft's supposed to be, because to me, flaps 5 approach, if I use this program for the correct speeds, I mean, I'm descending at 2-3 degrees nose high, which is about what you'll descend in an Airbus, so it doesn't seem too rash to me. Right, so LFRQ runway 28, landing weight is going to be 42,500. Set runway, set landing config, and there you go, a little bit of turbulence, it dropped the speed. See, it doesn't react too badly out at cruise, but that might just be because performance is reduced at this altitude. Crosswind limits are not exceeded, headwind's going to be 13 knots, crosswind's going to be 6 knots. Computed landing speeds, let's get this up. It's going to be, I'm going to use flaps 5 approach, so it's 131 plus 6 knots. Performance, landing, next page, it's going to be 131 for the VREF, 137 for the VAP, and the VAC I'll use flaps too, so the VAC's to do your go around flap. I'm going to use 161, and then VFS is going to be 189. 161, 189, set, previous menu, I think I can put the winds in, yes I can. That. Winds 290 at 12. Not bad, it's only 10 degrees off the runway. There you go, here. 12 knot headwind, 3 knot crosswind component. ETA 46 minutes. Now, there you go, the landing weight has gone down by 100 kilos. I'm going to recalculate that, but then I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to calculate it again. It's okay if I calculate a little bit heavier rather than a little bit lighter. It means I'll have more speed than I need rather than less. Oh, and it does change it all by 1 knot. It must have been on the edge of that performance. This is a flaps 5 approach. If I did a full flap approach, it'd reduce the VAP down even more. But standard is actually flap 5. Flap full approach is for places that you need to be slower because the runways are tiny, like if you're coming back to London City. Doing some cloud skimming now. I'll be back in a moment. just doing a few jobs. Steve, after I've landed, I'm going to have my lunch. But I'll probably be back on for DCS about 1, half 1. Right, so what we can see is there's no altitude restrictions at all until 3,000 feet. So there's one restriction that we're descending. It's a continuous descent to 3,000 feet from the top of descent. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set 3,000 feet now so it can descend as soon as it wants to descend, so that I'm not interacting with it. The descent speed, you can see 0.59 there because we're at cruise, and it goes to 290 there, because that's what the defaults are set to. The one way around this, which I used to do but I'm not happy doing when it's supposed to work how it is you can actually set the descent profile. I used to set the descent profile to 260 knots at 0.65 at 2 degrees, but then that extends your descent further out, and it's just not what you should have to do. You end up descending at like 150, 160 miles. You start your descent from a normal cruise altitude, not this kind of cruise altitude, which just isn't what it should be. Right, there's 3,000 feet set, so it will descend when it wants to descend. You can see the descent profile from top of descent is linear. It's completely, if I zoom out a bit, there you go, it's a straight line. There's no altitude restrictions constricting it until we descend until our 3,000 feet. Let's go check the charts for the minimum altitude. So minimum go around altitude on the ILS is 200 radio, and our transition altitude is 5,000. So that's 200 set from left and right, it does the same. And then we'll go into performance, second page, transition altitude is 5,000 now. And it'll switch the ILS on automatically, or it should. But in case it doesn't, I'm actually going to just check. So the ILS should be 110.3, but this is a default airport I'm flying to. So it's worth me actually checking what it's really set to. Oh, good. 110.3 in the sim as well. Clearly that airport has not changed in a very long time. There we go, coming up to the top of descent. About, what's that, 10 miles? No, not even. About 6 miles now. It's funny, if I was 400 feet, sorry, if I was 500 feet or more higher, I'd have to be under Eurocontrol West. Didn't do that on purpose, this is just the dispatch flight level. So what I expect to happen at top of descent is for the aircraft to keep some throttle on to reach 290, but also descend sort of, it will use the descent at 3 degrees, but it should just set the descent to a 3-degree descent, because that's what it's supposed to do. Sorry, a 2.7 degree descent, because that's what they've got it set to now. So I should be in a 2.7 degree descent, and it will adjust the throttle to maintain 290 knots. to put a seatbelt on because it's quite a steep descent in comparison to most aircraft. Well, it's a steep initial descent. So actually, I think it's a slightly nose down.
Please return to your seat as the seatbelt sign is now on.
So on the map, top right, you can see the arrival I'm taking. So we're direct now to Badr. After Badr, it's ARE. From there, you'd usually take an arrival, which takes you to one of these fix somewhere here. I think it's QR maybe. But because I'm going for 2.8, I've gone direct to the initial approach fix. Or else I'd have to go here, fly back on myself to there, do a very sharp turnaround to get back on the ILS. Right, top of descent any moment, so we should see the aircraft react to that nicely. This isn't usually a problem. The problem is when we get lower and nearer the slowing down speed. Another problem it has is if I've got two waypoints, let's say two waypoints at 12, I'm using 12 miles as an example, 12 miles apart. The first waypoint I've got, there you go, speeding up and descending on the path, slightly above the path, but it should catch up and sort itself out. If it was 12 miles apart, if I had one set to 200 knots, the next one set to 180 knots, or 210 and 180 like I've got now, what happened last time in FMS managed speed, it actually, in between those waypoints, ignored both waypoints constraints and went straight for the 240 or 250 below 10,000 feet. It shouldn't be doing that. If there's a constraint, it should be flying 210 knots passing the first constraint and then slow down, stay at 210 knots and slow down in time to be at 180 over the next constraint. So last time we had to take over the speed from the FMS and go on to selected speed, but we'll see. Still bringing the see, it's not got full power. It's not on the descent right now. We're slightly above the descent, but you can see that it's actually descending slightly higher rate, so that by Badr we should be on the descent at 290 knots. So initially it's a little bit higher as it gets its speed up. The difference between what we're doing now and what I'd usually do is I'm only at 24,000 feet, so it's had to speed up to 290 knots. Usually it would have to match the Mach number, which would be a lot closer to the cruise speed than 290 knots. I'll probably provide this video to the devs, and they can decide whether it's had the effect that it's supposed to on the aircraft. This is the main part of the flight that was affected, the descent and the late final descent. We're going to go low auto brakes for this landing. It's not a massively long runway, but it's not massively short either. So. Runway length 2150. There we go. We're just coming onto profile now nicely as we hit Badr. I'm happy with that. I don't mind that because it was catching the speed up, but it's caught the descent profile now. So now we're on profile 290, and what you'll see is it manages this for quite a while because it's not having to release the throttle completely. It's not having to put the throttle fully on. It'll just adjust to keep me at 290 knots for a while. The trouble comes when the slowdowns start to happen. So just before I get to flight level 100, it'll want to try and slow down to 210 knots. And in this aircraft, it's not like an Airbus where you can put the speed brake out with power and it'll just warn you about it. The speed brake just won't come out. Oh, tell a lie, it's come out. See, it hasn't done that before. But you'll see, as soon as I put the speed brake out, the throttle will try and counteract it. Rather than using the descent to counteract it, it uses the throttle. See, now it's losing the descent profile again. What it needs to do is idle the throttle more and use a higher rate of descent. That's the problem here. I'm going to let it do its thing. It's slowly adjusting, 1,400 descent rate, 1,500, but it's taking too long about it. So I'm now I'm above profile and it's going to struggle. It's not, according to the prediction line on the descent profile, it's not going to get back on profile until we're nearer the bottom of the descent. And soon we'll be having to slow down because it's 240 at 10,000. This is all the aircraft. This is no input from me because this is an open descent basically. What is that? It's a weird texture over there. Not had that before. Or not noticed it before. I haven't done anything to the sim, so. Yeah, see, it's still adding power when it's above profile. It should cut the power and use the descent to get me back on profile, but it's not. That's what I would think it should do, just like an Airbus would. I know I'm comparing it to Airbus, but it's just how a descent should happen. It's more fuel efficient to turn the power off and use the energy you've got through altitude. Oh, Steve, I think I found the switch that we need to click to enable the RWR in the F-16. We'll try it in a bit. Go here and look at the screenshots. Right, we're on profile, on speed. This is where it's going to start getting rocky because we're hitting 10,000 feet, and then we're going to be in a. Oh, saying that, it shallows it out, possibly to get the speed. I'm going to hit 10,000 feet. It's going to want to slow down. We're slightly below profile now. That's right. There you go. Right, that's fine. It's fine to be below profile right now because it's slowing down. It needs to slow to 240 knots, and at the minute, what's the throttle doing? The throttle should be cut right now, and now it's jumping around because we're in a little bit of turbulence. See, this is the problem. Why is it still at 290 knots? It's commanding 240 knots. We're below profile, which is fine. It shallowed the descent out because of it now to 1,000 feet. I mean, that speed is not coming off as it needs to. That throttle needs to come idle. There you go, slowly going idle. But if we hit a tiny bit of turbulence, there you go, bumps it back on. Yeah, see, this is the problem. Let's see what the end result is before I judge it too much. We're about 25 miles till we need to be at 3,000 feet. The problem here is, if I try and help it slow down with the speed brake, all it will do is put the throttle on. No, that's the point of this test, Steve. It shouldn't need me to go manual, it should be able to do it. I'm testing a file for the developers right now. So if I go manual, I'm defeating the object of it, because I'm fighting it rather than letting it do what it does and show it what the aircraft does itself. Landing light coming on, passing flight 100. QNH1006, we're going to set that now. And now we're way above profile. I mean, this is light turbulence. This is not something the aircraft shouldn't be able to cope with. Light, if anything. There you go, a little bump. That's not moderate turbulence at all. Needs to increase the descent rate and reduce the throttle off. Needs to be gliding right now. It is trying to fix the problem. But it's not doing a good job about it. And we're going to have another slowdown. And this next fix is 210 knots. What we'll do, if it's not stable by the glide slope, we will have to go into heading mode and selected speed and just come back around for another approach. I'm not going to force it to make a bad approach. It just proves itself. But we're coming. You can see that if you look at the descent profile line, I'll get that in a minute. It's not doing too bad, because if you look at the descent profile line, it is saying we're going to be at 3,000 there. That's where it crosses the 3,000 line. But obviously there's going to be a slowdown as well, so that's going to affect it a bit. So in this aircraft, Steve, the throttle is designed that once you're all set up, you press the takeoff, you press the toggle button, and it sets it into takeoff mode. And all you have to do then, as long as the auto throttle's engaged, you have to just put the throttles all the way forward, and they stay there the whole flight. And then you idle them on approach, so that the auto throttle can idle them. A bit like a 777, idle them on flare. See the wing flex, nice. Alright mate, you got time. I'm not going to be on till probably 1:30 now. Probably chill for an hour, have some food. Fold me washing. So the ILS has tuned itself there, 17 miles out we are. 210 knots, there we go. Let's see if it can manage to get down to that. I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to overshoot all of these constraints. It's because it's in a little bit of turbulence. About the same as what I was when I tested this before. I just don't feel like, so far, I don't feel like the behaviour has changed in any way. There, set 180. It's set 180. We're still at 260 knots because it's trying to get down to 3,000 feet. If it had done it for, look, the throttle's coming on. We should have zero throttle. The throttle should be completely idle now, but you can see it moving. I don't know what it's reacting to because there's nothing it should be reacting to. Our speed's not bleeding off. We are not going to be slow enough to land at this rate. 15 miles out, 260 knots. We're faster than even the below 10,000 constraint should be. Right, what I'm going to do now, it's stable enough for me to probably now recover it. Select 160 knots so it really slows down. 3,000's already selected. I'm going to select, where are we, approach, so it gets the localizer now. It should be on it. And then it'll get the glide slope. Can't even get flap down yet. So yeah, I've taken over now, but you can see the descent profile. It prioritizes descent over speed. What it should do is just cut the throttle. If it's too high, it should cut the throttle to idle and hold it at idle hard, not flicker it if it goes into a little bit of turbulence, and it should use the pitch to get the speed down and try and get back on profile. We're putting one flap in. We're below one flap speed. Now 10 miles out, 3 minutes. It's this slowdown. Now we're going to hit the glide slope. We're going to start descending again. I mean, look, it's putting power back on. I've got 160 knots set. It's at 213 knots. It should have zero power right now, slowing down so I can bloody get the flaps down. This is the problem. This file has not fixed the descent issues of this aircraft and the throttle issues of this aircraft. It just feels like they've only changed the descent angle, which isn't going to fix the throttle at all. There's the airport. Right, at this point, we're going complete manual throttle. Auto throttle's off. I'm idle on the throttle now, which means I'll be able to put my speed brake out, which if I did this with the auto throttle on, I wouldn't get my speed down. There's 215 knots, flaps 2. So as soon as I put flaps 2, I've got no speed brake, so I need to maintain flaps 1 to get my speed brake to work and get me slower before I start putting more flaps down then. So our VAP was, what was it, 137, wasn't it? I'm going to be manual throttle, but I'm just going to do this so I've got an indication. That was 136 actually. Right, there you go. Flaps 2, which means spoilers are in, but I can get the gear down. We can get flaps 3 at this speed. We can get flaps 4 and 5 at 180 knots. I'll take over manually from here, completely manual. Not too bad when you're on an ILS, you're actually following a glide slope. If you're on an RNAV approach, this is when the throttle will cause issues, because you need to get your speed down to maintain the descent profile. And what it sometimes does, on the RNAV arrivals, it descends you way below what you should be below. Last time I did the flight here, I actually did the RNAV arrival runway 10, and I was getting stupid low, so I had to take over. It was way too low, way too early. Maintain a slight extra speed just because we are in a bit of turbulence.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to France. The local time is 1:27 p.m. and it's currently about 13 degrees Celsius. You can now use your mobile devices. Please remain seated until the aircraft has come to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign is turned off. Remember to use caution when opening the overhead bins, as items may have been shifted during the flight. If this is your final destination, we thank you for flying with us. If you're making a connection, we encourage you to check your itinerary to ensure a smooth continuation of your journey.
Yeah, so overall, I would not say that's fixed. I'll send them a link to this video, and I'll let them know link to the video, and I'll let them know I don't think it's fixed. All the IC's changed. They've changed the descent, the default descent profile angle to 2.7 degrees. The throttle just doesn't idle early enough. Doesn't prioritize idling the throttle to keep the speed back and get the descent going. I don't know what real pilots they've got on this, but surely the real aircraft does not do that.